It was never supposed to be a permanent job, just a temporary gig while I figured things out. My name's Lauren Mitchell. I'm 27, originally from Columbus, Ohio. After finishing my nursing degree and spending 2 years working ER in Cleveland, I needed a break. Mentally, emotionally, everything felt too heavy. So I applied for a travel nursing position, and that's how I ended up at St. Augustine Memorial Hospital in rural Pennsylvania. So, 3 hours outside of Pittsburgh, St. Augustine was like stepping into a time capsule from the 70s. Old yellow-tiled walls, rust-streaked sinks, and lights that buzzed like angry hornets overhead. The hospital had downsized a decade ago. Only one wing of it still operated, Ward B. The rest was sealed off. They said it was budget cuts, but the locals spoke in hushed tones. Every time I asked why the hospital looked like it hadn't been touched in years, people changed the subject. The first time I walked through those automatic doors, a chill slid down my spine. Not from the cold, it was late August, but something deeper, a kind of instinctual warning, like my body knew something I hadn't caught on to yet. At orientation, there were only two other night shift nurses, Marcus and Maggie. Marcus was younger than me, tall, easygoing, maybe too easygoing for a place like this. Maggie, on the other hand, had been working at St. Augustine for 22 years. Her eyes were tired, like she'd seen too much, but she moved with a strange grace. She looked like someone who knew where all the ghosts were hiding. When I asked her why she never worked beyond the second floor, she smiled and said, "Because I'm not stupid." That was it. No further explanation. She just handed me a laminated floor plan and walked away. I worked my first few shifts with Marcus, who mostly ignored the strange noises and flickering lights. "Old building," he'd say every time something weird happened. On my third night, around 2:40 a.m., I was making rounds when I passed by room 616. It was supposed to be sealed off. Every door in that wing had a rusty padlock, except that one. Room 616 looked perfectly normal, too normal. Clean white paint, intact glass, and a silver number plate that hadn't dulled with time like the others. That's when I noticed the air was colder there. My breath puffed out in visible clouds. It made no sense. I took a step toward the door, and then I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. From the inside. My heart stuttered. I backed away fast, nearly dropping the med tray in my hands. I stared at the door, waiting, hoping it was my imagination. Then knock, 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 again. No one was assigned to that room. The wing was closed. No one should have been in there. I rushed back to the nurse's station. Marcus was scrolling through his phone. "You heard that?" I asked, breathless. He looked up. "Heard what?" From room 616, there was knocking. He blinked once, twice, then put down his phone. "Don't talk to it," he said, his voice low. "What?" "If you hear knocking, you walk away. That's it. Don't answer, don't speak, don't stay." I thought he was messing with me. Come on, seriously? He didn't laugh, didn't smile, just stared at me. "Maggie'll tell you. Don't engage with it." The next day, I asked Maggie during the shift change. She was quiet for a long time. Then she leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Room 616 used to be part of the psychiatric floor. Back in the 80s, there was a doctor here, Dr. Clemens. He ran what he called deep behavior correction treatments. Electroshock, isolation, some say even worse." My stomach turned. They shut him down after a patient died. Maybe more than one. He disappeared. Rumors say he never left. I laughed nervously. "You mean like a ghost?" Her expression didn't change. "I mean something worse." That night, I couldn't sleep. I looked up every record I could find on Dr. Clemens, but there was hardly anything online. Just a few old newspaper clippings about malpractice, an internal investigation, and then nothing. Like someone had scrubbed the rest. The following night, I was alone for the first few hours of my shift. Marcus had called out sick. Maggie was on the second floor. Around 3:03 a.m., the intercom crackled. A soft, static hum filled the air. Then a faint voice, raspy, barely there, whispered, "Lauren." I froze. I hadn't touched the intercom. No one else was on this floor. Then the lights in the hallway flickered twice and died. Only the emergency red strips on the floor glowed dimly. My heart hammered. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the station. The halls were silent, but the cold was back. So cold my fingertips turned numb. I turned the corner toward room 616. The door was ajar. Just slightly. Like someone had invited me in. I lifted my hand to close it. Knock, knock, knock. This time it came from behind me, Mel and TC. When I spun around, no one was there. But the door was fully open now. Inside was a neatly made hospital bed, old ECG equipment, and a tray of scalpels. Dusty, untouched. But on the far wall, written in dark smudges that looked like blood, were 3 words. "I see you." The flashlight slipped from my hand. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the stairwell, didn't stop until I was outside, gasping in the night air. I didn't care if they fired me. I needed out. But I didn't quit. Not yet. Something about that room pulled at me, like it knew something about me, something I didn't understand. And that was just the beginning. I didn't go back to the hospital for 2 days. I lied, told them I was sick. And maybe I was, mentally, emotionally. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw that message on the wall. "I see you." Worse, I started hearing the knocks at home. Worse. At first, I thought it was the old plumbing in my apartment or neighbors making noise at weird hours, but it wasn't. The knocks came in threes. Always slow, always deliberate. And always between 2:50 and 3:10 a.m. One night, I opened my front door after hearing them again. No one was there. Just silence. And a single wet footprint on the wooden floor outside my door. I went back to work on the 3rd night. Maggie greeted me like she already knew I'd seen something I shouldn't have. "You opened it, didn't you?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She sighed. "He knows you now." I almost laughed at how crazy it sounded. He? What the hell did that mean? But something about her eyes stopped me. This wasn't a joke to her. "He latches onto people," she continued. "People like you. Curious, skeptical. The moment you step close, you give him permission." "Permission for what?" I asked. "To follow." That shift dragged like hell. Every time I passed the corridor near room 616, I felt like something was just out of view, watching me from the edges of the hallway, behind doors, inside shadows. Set. At one point, I heard static in the intercom again. This time it was louder, clearer. "Lauren, come back." I ripped the plug from the wall. The night got colder. By 3 a.m., I was wrapped in a spare blanket and still shivering. Then I saw Marcus coming toward the station, walking slowly down the hallway. Something was off. His head was tilted to the side, and his eyes were wide, too wide. He was barefoot, and his scrubs were soaked in something dark. At first, I thought it was blood. He stopped just outside the station, smiled, and said in a strange, hollow voice, "He's inside me now." I stood up, panic building. "Marcus, what happened?" But he didn't answer. He turned around and walked away. I followed him down the hall, but when I turned the corner, he was gone. No footsteps, no sound, no doors open. Gone. I went back to the nurse's station and called down to the 2nd floor. Maggie picked up. "Hey, do you know where Marcus is?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She paused. "Marcus called out sick again, Lauren. He's not here." "But I saw him." "Lauren," her voice grew serious, "listen to me carefully. You need to leave that floor right now." I stood frozen, the phone still to my ear. Behind me, I heard someone whisper. It wasn't in English. It was German. And it came from room 616. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the first floor. I found Maggie waiting near the staff lounge, already holding her car keys. "I'll drive you," she said. We didn't speak on the way to my apartment. But when she dropped me off, she handed me something, a small wooden charm with strange symbols carved into it. "Keep this near you," she said, "and don't open your door if you hear knocking." She started driving away, then stopped and leaned out the window. "One more thing," she said. "Whatever happens, don't fall asleep between 3 o'clock and 3:15. That's when he tries to pull you through." I didn't ask how she knew that. That night, I followed her instructions. I placed the charm under my pillow. I set alarms to keep myself awake. I watched the clock tick past 3:15, breath held, nerves frayed. Nothing happened. Until the next night. At 3:02 a.m., my power went out. My phone shut off. Every light blinked out. The digital clock on the wall froze at 3:03. And the knocking began again. Knock, knock, knock. But this time, it wasn't at the door. It came from inside the apartment. From my bedroom closet. I stared at it in the dark, frozen. The knob twisted once, slow and creaky. Then it stopped. The charm under my pillow began to heat up. My whole body went cold. And then, through the crack in the closet door, I saw it. A hand, pale, long fingers, almost skeletal, curled around the doorframe. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. Then I blinked, and it was gone. I didn't sleep after that. Not that night. Not the next. I started losing time, seeing things that couldn't be real. Faces in windows, shadows moving against the ceiling, the smell of antiseptic and burnt flesh everywhere I went. On the fourth night, I got a call. Marcus was dead. Overdose, they said. But Maggie didn't believe that. "He saw something," she told me. "Same as you. He let it in, and it never left." I didn't want to hear anymore, but I needed to understand what was happening. So I did something stupid. I went back to the hospital, back to room 616. And I opened the door. The moment I stepped into room 616, the air changed. It wasn't just cold anymore, it felt thick, like walking into a tank full of invisible smoke. My ears popped, my skin tingled. The hairs on my arms stood straight up, and every breath felt like inhaling static. The room looked different, no longer neat or untouched. The bed was overturned. The walls were lined with deep scratch marks, some so low they had to be made by someone crawling. The ECG machine was on, though there was no power in this part of the building. Its screen flickered green with a flat line, a steady, unchanging beep. And then, on the far wall, I saw the mirror. There hadn't been a mirror before. It was large, antique, cracked in the corner. My reflection stared back at me, but something was off. My expression wasn't the same. I looked angry in the mirror, like I was glaring at myself with hate. I took a slow step forward. My reflection stayed still. Didn't move. Didn't blink. And then it smiled. I turned and ran. But I didn't reach the hallway. The door slammed shut behind me. The handle disappeared. I was sealed inside. Suddenly, the ECG machine started screaming. Beep, 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 beep. Then it flatlined again. The lights dimmed to red. The walls groaned, and a whisper rose from every corner. I couldn't make out the words, until they became one word, over and over again. Clemens, Clemens, Clemens. I pressed myself against the door, tried to push it open, kick it, scream. Then I heard breathing. From behind me, I turned slowly where it, and there he was, a tall, bony figure in a doctor's coat, standing halfway in shadow, face obscured. His hands were black with ash or dried blood. He stepped forward silently, as if gliding rather than walking. I froze. His eyes, two black holes, locked onto me. And in a voice that didn't match his mouth, he said, "Do you want to be cured?" I shook my head, whispered, "No." His smile widened. Wrong answer. He lunged. Everything went black. I woke up hours later in the basement boiler room, alone, bruised, with dust and ash smeared all over my skin. I didn't remember how I got there. I left the hospital that night and never went back. But the haunting didn't stop. I started losing chunks of time, waking up in unfamiliar places. My fingernails caked with dirt, muddy footprints in my apartment. One night, I found myself standing on a bridge in the middle of town at 4 a.m., barefoot, holding a rusted scalpel. The charm Maggie gave me snapped in two. She called me one last time, told me to come to her house. When I got there, she handed me a file, old, yellowed papers, photographs, incident reports. Turns out, room 616 wasn't just where Dr. Clemens worked. It was where he died. He had locked himself in that room after the investigation began. No one knows why, but when they found him, his face had been torn off. The door had been locked from the inside. The last note he scribbled was just one sentence. "The cure is pain." I moved out of Pennsylvania, changed my number, started therapy, but the dreams never stopped. And I still hear the knocks, always in threes, always at 3:03 a.m. Now, wherever I go, the mirror shows something different. Not me, but him, still wearing that old doctor's coat, still smiling, waiting. And I know he's not done with me. Maggie didn't pick up my calls after that night. I tried 3 times. Each one rang until it clicked over to voicemail. I even drove back to our house a few days later, but the place was locked up. Curtains drawn, mail piling on her doorstep. Something wasn't right. I waited until dark, broke in through the back window. Don't judge me. I was scared and desperate, and deep down, I knew something had happened. The house smelled like lavender and old medicine. Photos of Maggie and a little girl, her daughter I assumed, lined the hallway. There were candles everywhere, protection symbols etched into the walls, salt poured thick along the door frames and windowsills. This wasn't a home. It was a ward, a barrier, a trap. I found her in the basement. She was curled up on the floor near an altar made of bone and melted wax. Her eyes were wide open, her mouth frozen mid-scream. But she wasn't dead. Not exactly. She blinked when I touched her. "Lauren," she whispered, voice brittle. "He found the mirror, didn't he?" I didn't know what to say. She began trembling. "It was never just the hospital. He was never buried there. That's just where he awoke." She handed me a dusty book. Its pages were handwritten in tight, meticulous German. Her finger tapped one section repeatedly. It translated to Clemens Reiter, physician, researcher, occultist. Dismissed from Vienna General Hospital 1891. Known for forbidden practices, mirror scrying, blood rites, psychological mutilation. Claimed to cure diseased souls by breaking the mind's last barrier. My blood turned to ice. He wasn't a ghost. He was something older, something worse. A traveler. Someone who discovered how to enter people through reflective surfaces and trauma. Who needed you, broken, lost, open. Maggie choked out one final warning before collapsing into a seizure. Break the glass and burn the bones. But I didn't know where his bones were. And that mirror, that cursed mirror, it had already followed me. When I got home, it was waiting. A giant oval frame nailed to my living room wall. I never bought it, never saw it delivered, but it was there, unmistakably, with that same cracked corner and faint, fogged surface. I covered it with a sheet. But that night, the sheet was torn off. I watched from my bed as shadows moved inside the glass. They didn't mimic my reflection anymore. They acted on their own. And behind those figures, barely visible, stood him. Smiling. Always smiling. The next week, things escalated. Neighbors reported screams from my apartment. My cat vanished. Lights flickered even during the day. I passed out twice at work, waking with symbols carved lightly into my skin. Always in threes. I couldn't take it anymore. So I went back to the hospital, one final time. Not to fight, but to end it. I brought the book, salt, a sledgehammer, and gasoline. Room 616 was gone. The number plate ripped off, the hallway sealed with police tape. But I didn't care. I broke in through the back service tunnels, found the old maintenance hatch, and slipped in through the boiler room. The hospital was darker than I remembered. Silent. Breathing. As if it knew. I found the hidden morgue behind the east wing. It wasn't on any map. Maggie had mentioned it once, barely. Beneath the mirrors, behind the forgotten steel. Inside were dozens of body drawers, long abandoned, cold as stone. And in one, bones. Scorched, blackened, wrapped in a lab coat. A name tag fused to rusted metal. Dr. Clemens Reiter. I didn't hesitate. I poured the gasoline, lit a match. And as the flames grew, I heard him, screaming. Not from the morgue, but from inside the walls, inside the mirrors, inside me. He fought. I blacked out. When I woke, the fire was out. The bones were ash. The mirror in my apartment? Shattered. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't hear the knock. Didn't see the reflection smile. Didn't wake up in strange places. I was free. Or so I thought. Until last week. I visited an antique shop with a friend in a different city, just browsing, just curious. And there, at the back of the store, was another mirror, oval, cracked in the corner. And this time, it reflected something I hadn't seen in a long time. Him. Standing behind me, still smiling, still waiting. He is not gone. He never was. Because the truth is, you don't escape Clemens Reiter. You just spread him. And now, you've read his name. You've heard his story. The reflections all were already watching you. Check your mirrors tonight. And whatever you do, don't answer if someone knocks. Epilogue 2 weeks later. They say horror stories don't follow logic, but they do follow patterns. That's how I ended up getting a message from a stranger, someone who found my post buried in an obscure paranormal forum I never remember uploading. His name was Derek, a nurse in Chicago. And his message? Is it possible to catch something through a mirror? Room 616 sound familiar? I need help. Something's wrong. My blood went cold. I told him to run. He said it was too late. The mirrors had started reflecting things that weren't there. His phone screen froze on a selfie of him sleeping. A photo he never took. Lights in his apartment dimmed whenever he said Clemens' name out loud. Then came the dreams. The knocking. And the phrase carved into his bathroom mirror. The cure is pain. He sent one last voice note. I still have it. Shaky breathing, stammering words. You can hear someone whispering in the background. Not to him, but through him. He was trying to smash all the glass in his apartment. But at the very end of the recording you hear this. I broke every mirror, every screen, everything. But I still see him. In my eyes, the message cuts off with a scream. His account deleted itself. His phone number? Disconnected. I contacted Chicago PD. No one found a body. But 3 days later, my bathroom mirror fogged up by itself. Written in the condensation. You brought me back. I thought I was done with him. I thought burning the bones ended everything. But I missed something. See, Clemens never wanted to haunt one place forever. He wanted to be remembered, spread, a virus through reflection, through thought, through belief. And now, every time someone reads this story, every time someone thinks his name, every time someone checks a mirror just in case, he grows stronger. And he waits for the perfect crack. One glimpse, one whisper, one moment of fear. That's all he needs. So if you're reading this, if your screen flickers, if your reflection blinks out of sync, if you hear 3 soft knocks tonight at 3:03 a.m., don't look, don't answer. And whatever you do, don't say his name out loud, because he's listening. And now, he knows you believe. And that's where part 1 ends. If you want to know what happens next, if you want to find out who becomes the next victim of the haunted mirror, or if Clemens finally crosses into our world for real, then drop a part 2 in the comments right now. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to witness what happens next. Because trust me, part 2 is darker, scarier, and way more twisted than anything you've seen yet. See you in the next one. Until then, keep your mirrors covered. Bye for now. Stay safe. And whatever you do, don't say his name.